Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Imagine More podcast, where we spotlight the real stories behind real entrepreneurs who are boldly imagining more and making it happen. I'm your host, Rose Young, and I'm so glad you're here with us today. We've got a fantastic guest, someone who has inspired so many people with his creativity, wisdom, and business savvy. Whether you're launching your first big idea or looking to scale your empire, today's episode is pure gold. So grab your coffee, take a deep breath, and get ready to take notes. John Vaughan is a storyteller at heart with a sharp mind for business. He's the founder of StoryFocused Media and has over 25 years in sales and marketing. Before diving into the creative world, he built a successful career in commercial insurance. So yes, he's basically lived two entrepreneurial lives and mastered them both. John, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I don't know about mastered, but I'm here.
Let's take it back. Before the video reels and the creative agency, you started in insurance. What sparked the leap from a very stable career to launching your own creative business?
To me, that's almost like, as I have some distance from it, it's a pretty easy question to answer. I did not intentionally, let me take that back. I did get into insurance on purpose.
Okay.
But it was purely monetarily. Right? It was like, at that time, I was like, who do I know that's making a lot, that's doing well for themselves? Uh-huh. And real estate agents and insurance agents were on that list. So I picked insurance.
Really?
And that's how I got into it. And so while for most people, that's a fine reason to get into a job, and it was a good job. Don't get me wrong, I did well in it. It was not satisfying.
Yeah.
In a lifelong kind of level. Monetarily it's satisfying, but like creatively, and I've always been a creative person, it was not satisfying at all.
Yeah.
And I'd done it for 15 years, and I just finally looked at my wife and it's like, hey, before I get too old, I want to do something else.
Right.
And so with her support, I made that leap. And it wasn't just all of a sudden, it was a lot of like trying to figure out what skills do I have, what does the market need, and how can I take the skills that I have and creativity and make a business that will help other businesses, right?
Right.
And then also provide me an income, living.
Yeah, so how did you go through those steps? Take us through some of those steps might help some of those people listening want to start.
I think there's a book called What Color's Your Parachute? Uh-huh. That's a great book for anybody that's kind of looking for a career, if you will, not necessarily entrepreneurship, but that'll help. So there's got some stuff that I looked through that definitely helped me. But again, really, it was just going down and looking at my skill sets. Like, what are my skill sets? And my skill sets at the time were sales.
Okay.
Like a lot of sales, marketing, and just kind of and because I was in commercial insurance, which meant I went into a different business every day. I went into a different business every day, learned about that business, learned about what they need from an insurance standpoint, and then help them get that insurance coverage. So that's kind of what I do now, is I go into different businesses, learn about their businesses, learn about what they need from a marketing standpoint, from a growth standpoint, and then how can I solve that from video. So those traits transitioned very well. And so that's what I did. I literally just went down a checklist and said, what do I have that can be applied to other markets, to other businesses? And I don't want to say it was as simple as that, but that was the basis of it.
Right. And so did you quit your job right away, or did you do this as a side? Or?
Yes and no. So I started on the side. Little side note, I actually tried to be a wedding videographer 100% years before. So I started StoryFocused Media in 2017. Uh-huh. Way back in 2010, I tried to be a wedding videographer full time.
Really?
Yeah, and I failed. Just flat out failed. Did not make it. Did not understand what I was doing. Did not understand the market. Did not understand what it would take to support yourself on that, and so I failed. And so when I decided to do this again in 2017, I took more of I'm going to focus on businesses and what they need, and do that. So what was your question?
Was it a side?
Yeah, and so it started out as a side thing, but at some point I had to cut the cord and say I'm going to do this full time.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily something I necessarily recommend, and we can talk about that later. I know you. But that's what I ended up doing with the support, again, of my wife.
support of your wife. That was a huge thing.
Yeah, it was 100%.
You've built something successful in a space that's highly competitive. What are some things you did early on that helped StoryFocused Media stand out?
A couple things. One, I got started early. In 2017, there weren't a whole lot of people that were focusing on creating videos for businesses.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah, very little. Maybe in some bigger markets, but definitely in our area, there was probably none or very few. And so that was one part. I would say that's a little bit lucky. So I don't want to take credit for that. But one thing I did to start out is I had a plan. I had a business plan. Talked to every professional I could think of about things, which I'll recommend. But the other thing was I didn't think it had to be a certain way.
Yeah.
Right. So in my mind, I was like, well, when I start creating video, I know realtors will need video. I know businesses of all sizes will need video, and I had all these little different niches, if you will, that I could look at.
Right.
But it didn't have to be any one of those. And come to find out, I didn't do a whole lot with realtors. I did some, and I still have one or two that I work with even today. Mm-hmm. But that's not a large percentage of my business. And right. I thought it was going to be. Yeah. I thought it was going to be like a real big thing. And if I had kind of committed to that and said, oh, it's got to be, because that was part of my plan, right. I would have had a real rough time, because it just, it can't be set in concrete, or shouldn't be set in concrete. My whole idea was just basically just be able to create videos for businesses, and have a story-backed approach to that. But other than that, my ability to kind of find out what the market actually needed and follow that, I think, was my biggest success. Yeah.
So you weren't afraid to be open to what your business could be, I guess.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And I always, when I'm talking to younger people especially, I think it's great to have goals, and you should strive towards those goals.
Right.
But if something else comes up that's even better, don't be afraid to drop what you were doing and go after that. Oh. And that's kind of what I did with my business. Like,
what about fear? Talk about fear and doubt, and especially, I didn't know that you failed in 2010.
Yeah. I don't know. I think when you're younger, it's a lot easier to. I'd be more fearful now.
Oh, really?
I mean, I'm older. I've got a kid, and that would be a much scarier thing. But at the time, I had been in sales, and so I was already responsible for my own income because it was 100% commission. So I was used to that.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So that wasn't too hard. But I think, I keep mentioning my wife, having a supportive infrastructure makes that a lot easier. And then, like I said, I did fail. So, I guess just, I don't want to say don't be afraid of failure. I know people say it all the time. Don't be afraid. I think you should be a little bit.
Right.
But it should not dominate your thoughts, and it should not dominate your actions, but it should have a respect. Like, this could fail. And then what would happen?
And it shouldn't define you.
No, not at all. And to me, it's like, okay, so I fail. I can go back and I can get a job selling insurance. All right, if I fail, what do I do? Okay, I can go back and do this, or I can get a job doing that. It's not the end of the world. So,
what's the worst thing?
Exactly.
I go back to insurance.
Right.
Interesting. That's good advice. So you always say it's not just the product, it's the story that sells it. Why is storytelling so powerful in business?
Especially when you're talking about certain brands. Most people aren't buying the bells and whistles on the product. They're buying the story that it tells about themselves, right? You want to look a certain way. You want to wear certain clothes. You want to drive a certain car. You want to use a certain computer because it tells about you and what kind of person you are.
Okay.
And that's all part of the story. And myself personally, I look at brands and I'll see a documentary, for example, and the documentary will be on, the Beastie Boys, one of my favorite groups, and I watch a documentary on them, and I like them even more because of their story. I already like them because of their music, but then I find out about the story of what their life was like, and I'm even more of a fan, and that's all because of the story. And brands do that all the time. Nike is phenomenal at it. Apple's phenomenal at it. They're just really good at telling their story and putting you in that story.
Mm-hmm. So who are your clients? Who are you looking for?
Today, wow. So we have a lot of clients that are kind of varied. Like I have dentists that I work with that we do like monthly content. We have a high-end landscaper, architect, hardscape that we work with. We have a counter manufacturer, so it's kind of all over. We have a lot of people that make products. I have a gentleman we work with that makes a shade that you stand under to hit a golf ball.
Oh, really?
And I know that sounds weird, but basically it's like it's really hot outside. You want to hit balls on the practice range, or hit balls on the practice range. You can put that sucker up. You can hit out there for 2 hours.
Wow.
So anyway, we have things like that, and once you see that in a video, you're like, oh, I get it. I get what they're doing. I get what this is all about, and I can use it. So we have a lot of different customers like that.
Now, do you ever do weddings?
Yeah, we do. We do some weddings. Yeah,
Okay.
I try to keep my Saturdays free. I'm going to go ahead and say that. So we keep the weddings to about maybe 12 a year or so. So something like that.
Yeah. So what are a few storytelling do's and don'ts for business owners who want to connect with their audience but aren't sure where to start?
So I think clear is better than clever.
Oh,
right?
Okay, explain that.
So sometimes we think of like a really smart thing to say or a really funny thing to say, and that is all fine and dandy, but it's better to be clear. So sometimes you can try to be a little too tricky with your marketing and your social advertisement and something like that,
Okay.
And it's better just to come out and say it. And an example that you may or may not be or have ever heard of, there was this movie came out, it's probably been 10, 15 years ago, called The Island.
Okay.
And there's a twist at the end of this movie, right? And when they were advertising the movie, they guarded this twist so much that they didn't advertise what the movie was about.
Okay.
And the movie bombed at the box office. You can look at it. It's called The Island.
Was that Leonardo DiCaprio?
No, that's a different movie.
Okay.
That's a great movie.
Okay.
That's a great.
I couldn't watch it. It's too scary.
And I could watch me be wrong on the name of the movie. But you can look it up, or I'll put it. Do we have show notes?
Yeah.
Put it in the show notes. But it's an example of like they were trying to be too clever, right? They were trying to be too clever. They didn't want to spoil this ending, so they didn't tell anything.
Yeah.
And so no one knew what the movie was about, and so
No one wanted to go.
And it's a good movie. It's a decent movie anyway. And because they were just trying to be too clever. So clear is better than clever.
Okay.
I would say. And then the other thing is from a storytelling standpoint, is it's great to tell your story. It's great to tell you what you're all about. But no one cares unless it involves them.
Oh, interesting.
So if you're telling your story as a business owner, make sure it includes your customer.
Okay.
If it doesn't involve your customer, they probably don't care.
Yeah.
Right? So if I'm a restaurant and I have all these great things, but I don't say how it helps my customer, how it's going to either provide them a meal at any time of the day or how it's going to provide them a nutritious meal or whatever your strong point is, if I don't let them understand how it impacts them, it's just a story. And so you want that story at least from a business standpoint, you want that story to make your customer the hero, we like to say. You make your customer the hero.
Make your customer the hero.
They're the most important part. And so that's kind of a big thing that I see from a storytelling standpoint.
Is that one of the common mistakes that you see?
I think so. I mean, I think so. It's like
clever. We want to be really clever.
Yeah, it's like the storytelling, especially I think over the past 5 years or whatever, has just kind of blown up.
It has.
Everybody's in on that, and I think it's great, and it should be a major part of your marketing. Obviously, I think that. But yeah, I think you're telling it with the end point of involving your customer, of helping your customer, and when you're telling your story, it should be customer focused.
Take us through a little bit, like if I wanted to hire you and you were going to come talk to me about my business. Let's say my business is the podcast business.
Okay.
So how would we go through with that?
So we'd sit down first of all, and I would say, what is your goal? Like what problem are you hoping I can help you with?
Okay.
And so you can either give that answer or I can go on.
Go on.
All right. So you would say, let's say, for example, I want more listeners. Okay. And so I'd say, okay, well, what does that look like? And you say, well, right now I have X amount of downloads or whatnot. I want to achieve that. And so then I would actually talk about your process. And I'm going to ask a lot of questions.
Okay.
Like our first meeting is just me asking a ton of questions and would find out, well, what's your podcast all about? What's the goal of your podcast?
Yeah.
Who is on the podcast and all that kind of stuff. And once I find that out, then I would come back and say, okay, well, this would be a good opportunity for you. And you know what? I may tell you it's not.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I may say,
really?
Yeah, because everything doesn't fit for everybody, especially at certain price points, right?
Right.
Let's say you sell a widget for $2 and my services cost $2,000, right? You've got to sell a lot of widgets to pay for my services. So I have to be able to justify that I'm going to make you that amount of money and some, right?
Right.
And in some cases that works. Some cases it doesn't. And I want to be totally honest about that. And so then I might say, well, here's what you can do on your own. here's what you can do yourself. You don't need to hire me. There are certain things if you'll just do
Really,
it.
John?
Yeah, 100%. In fact, some of I have some monthly clients that I come and shoot content for them every month. They're on that line. That's stuff they could do themselves, and they know they can do themselves. But what they're paying me for is to make sure they do it, because they pay me, and I'm going to show up on Friday at 10 o'clock, and we're going to shoot for 2 hours, and it'll be done. But if they know they can do it, but they won't. They won't take the time.
Exactly, that makes sense.
There's something more important. They've got something going on. They're busy. They're running a business. They don't have time for that. But if they've paid me and I say I'm going to be there at 10 o'clock, they're going to do it, and it's going to get done. So there's that aspect of it as well. It's not just like I can do it all, and I can do it better than everybody. It has nothing to do with that. Okay. It's sometimes you just need someone to take that off your plate. Yeah. And that's part of it as well.
I see that. So it sounds like you pull the story out of us.
Yeah. Yeah. And we did a workshop, I guess it's been about a year since we've done the last one, but we used to do a workshop having business owners come in and basically asking them questions until they could discover their own story. Right. Because some people don't understand what their story is.
Exactly.
And so you just ask questions, and then we can put it in a little structure form. You know, this is more or less like this. It's like, this is where you were, then you wanted something. Usually there was something standing in the way of that. You overcame that, and now you have your business. And that's nice. It's literally as simple as that.
So you've grown a team, served a wide variety of clients, and made a name for yourself. What does scaling a business look like in real life? What worked? What didn't? I know that's a big question.
Yeah, this is, I'm going to go ahead and be honest. This is my toughest area.
Really?
Yeah, this is one I've had a lot of tough. So I'll just tell you my struggles. I don't know if I'll be able to give you any great advice.
I think that'll help.
So I started as a one-person team, and some of what I do is very specific. Like editing video is my biggest time outside of shooting, outside of meeting with people and things like that. Editing is very time-consuming. Yes. I come and shoot with somebody an hour or two. Well, I might have to edit for 5-6 hours to make something out of that.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I would love to hire somebody for that, but guess what? They've got to know how to edit. Yeah. And so if I bring them in and I teach them how to edit, it's probably 2 months, maybe longer, before they're ever a benefit to me. Yeah. Right. And so that's a big investment. I've done that before, and I had people work for a good little while doing that. But it's hard for me to do from my standpoint, because, like I said, there's so much. And then if I hire somebody off the street that knows how to edit, right? So I've got to pay them more, which is totally understandable and totally worth it. But that's kind of one of those balances that I have to. So I do have people that I have a second shooter that we hire. I have some people online, if you will, that I use to edit and stuff like that. But I would love to have somebody in my office editing. Yeah. But that's always been a struggle for me, is finding someone locally that can be a team member, if you will. Yeah. And help me edit and things like that. And so that's like the struggle I go through constantly. But that being said, I think talking to other people is the easiest way to solve that problem. When I say other people that have done it, other people that have experienced it, because they can walk you through that. Because that to me is like one of the, from an employee standpoint, scaling. That's what I'm thinking of when you say scale. Right. So so that you can be out there more and be telling more stories. Right. And so do you have employees now then, or is it just you? So I have a second shooter that we use, and then, like I said, I have some contractors that we use for lack of a better word, that we use for editing. Okay. Yeah. All right. So did you hear that? He is looking for someone that can come on to the team. 100%. Yeah. 100%. And what is like the number one criteria for that person? I guess it would be for me, and a good fit. A good fit. What is a good fit? What is a good fit? I think personality has to do more. So I'm trying to narrow it down myself for you in my head. That's good. Yeah. It'll come out. So personality has a lot to do with it. I'm looking for somebody that is creative, is willing to work, and kind of is detail oriented. Yes. I'm not very detail oriented, so I would love somebody to complement that. Yes. And be more detail oriented, because I think anybody can learn how to edit. Let's say, I think it's the same qualities that make someone good in any job, that they're willing to sit down and learn how to do it and then do it right. Which sounds like way too broad, but I think it doesn't need to be any more specific than that. Right. Someone that wants to work, and someone that's willing to listen to constructive criticism. which is tough sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, especially in the creative world, because you sit down and you put a lot of work into it.
It's your heart.
You're like, hey, I've created this thing, and the editors I've hired in the past, I mean, that's the first thing I tell them is that, look, you have to be able to put a lot of work into this, and for me to tell you, you've got to do it again.
Yeah.
If you can't do that and not take it personal, this probably isn't a good fit for you. And it is hard. I mean, I do it myself. I show my wife stuff all the time, and she's like, yeah, that's not working.
Yeah.
and it makes me mad. But, I mean, that's just part of the job.
How do you stay inspired and creative in a world that's always changing?
I find talking to other people, reading books, seeing movies, exposing myself to other creative endeavors, whether, like music, either playing music myself or going and seeing music, drawing.
Let's hear about your music.
Well, let's not. I've had a guitar for about it might be 3 years now, I don't know. But, but I sound like I've been playing for 6 months.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? That's where I'm at musically.
That's okay.
That's where I'm at musically.
Do you sing too?
No.
Your son?
He's probably musically gifted than I am, but he doesn't do anything.
No.
He's not really into, he hasn't played the guitar yet or drums or anything like that. Though I've tried to encourage him. He's a drawer. He's an artist for sure.
Yeah. And he takes after you in that.
I guess so, yeah.
Have you always drawn your little cartoons or characters?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, even when you're a kid?
I think, when I was a kid. My brother, I will say that my brother is an artist. He's actually a research psychologist. That's his profession. But he's been a good artist his whole life. And
Wait. He's a research psychologist, but he's a gifted artist.
He's a very gifted artist.
Really? That seems like two different brains, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. It is. I guess it is. I really don't know much about research psychology. But what I always found interesting, he's such a good artist, and he's always been a better artist than I am. And it wasn't until I was an adult that I could call myself an artist, because I knew he was an artist.
Yeah.
And he was really good.
Ah.
And so in my mind, I had to be that good to call myself an artist.
Okay.
And so it was literally one of those growth moments as an adult where I said, I don't have to be as good as him. I can still be an artist. And so that's something I definitely try to convey to other people when they're doing art, especially, is all you have to do to be an artist is, one, say you're an artist.
Yeah.
And then create something.
Really?
That's it. That's all you got to do, and you're an artist.
Older brother, younger brother?
He's older.
He's your older brother. So you kind of looked up to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh-huh. So let's get tactical. What are 3 things any entrepreneur can do this week to strengthen their brand?
I think number 1 is just start posting something on social media. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's probably not going to be great. Just start sharing, start posting. Get in front of the camera as much as you can. And this isn't so much from a brand standpoint, but I did want to say this, and I think I'll mention it later, but networking. If you can go out and have some coffee with somebody, if you can go, contact an old customer and just reach out to them for a purpose other than trying to sell them something, I think that is great. Find out how they're doing, find out what their needs are. If you can't help them, you might know somebody that can help them.
Right.
And I always thought that was something great about networking, is that when I started networking a lot, that was something I tried to do. When I talked to somebody and listened to their needs, I wasn't necessarily thinking, how can my business help them?
Right.
Obviously, that was in the back of my mind. But I was more or less listening to what their needs were. And if their needs were, well, we need to pick a commercial space over here, blah, blah, I'm saying, oh, well, guess what? I know a commercial realtor right over here. Why don't I introduce you to that person?
Right.
That was more of my focus when I was networking, especially in the early days, was just trying to help them connect. And then I became, in their eyes at least, I had value.
Right.
Even though I wasn't giving them my business, I had value because I helped them.
And you listen, because a lot of times I find that people are, thinking in their head, what am I going to say back? What am I going to say back? So they don't really hear what you're saying.
Right.
So, that's a big thing right there, that you listened. And even if it didn't have to do with you, still. So we are having a networking event, TR Marketing and Imagine More Events. Thank you for saying this about networking, John. It's on June 17th at Weymouth from 5:30 to 7:30. Hope you can make it. Okay, so that's 1. That's 2. You still owe me 1 more.
From a brand perspective.
Yes.
I would say sit down and very clearly write out what your brand says. And your brand is not your logo. I think most people know that, but if you don't, your brand is something different. And I can't remember who said this, so I apologize. But it was he gave this as an example. If Nike made a hotel, you would know exactly kind of what that hotel would feel like and look like in the lobby. It would be like performance. It would be athletic. It would have all these features because the brand is so strong.
Yeah.
You made a hotel. But if Marriott made a shoe, what does that shoe look like? And so Nike is very good about their brand. You know exactly what their brand is.
That's
even
true.
though it's hard to articulate sometimes.
Right.
You know what it is. And so if you want to help your brand out, sit down right now and do that exercise. What does your brand look like? What does your brand say? What are your brand attributes? Because if you can't describe your brand, then it's going to be hard for your customer to know what your brand is.
Exactly. Is the brand the story?
I think so. I think the brand is the story, but more importantly, the brand is what your customer perceives it is.
Okay.
Because you may say it's one thing. Like I may say my brand is story or whatever. And that's great. But I hope my customer feels that. They may not.
Right.
That's actually what your brand. That's my opinion. Your brand is what your customers and the public view your company as.
Interesting.
And so you hope those two things connect. That's
Right.
obviously the goal, but that's not always the goal. I mean, that's not always the result.
So I have to think like the client that I want to use me, my perfect client.
Right.
I have to think like them, and what do I want them to think of me?
Correct.
Is that right?
That's it.
And that's what the brand is.
That's what the brand is.
And the logo is just something to
The
look
logo
at.
is just it's not. I don't want to say it's just it, but it should be representative of your brand,
Right.
And it should be instantly recognizable. And there's all these things people that are smarter than me about graphic design can tell you about logos, but it's in support of your brand, but
Right.
it's not your brand.
Right. Huh. That's interesting, John. I'm going to think about that. Really interesting. So if I'm starting my own business and I'm working on my brand, how deep do I go? How much do I have to know about me and what I'm doing?
I think the more the better.
Yeah.
And you can over time you can cut stuff off and add stuff and all that kind of good stuff. But I think the more specific you are, the better.
Yeah.
And the more clear.
Okay.
And I think the more you can whittle it down to actually smaller things, and so you can look through that singular lens.
Okay,
the
give me an
better.
example of a singular lens. Smaller
Like
thing.
maybe a question that you ask yourself before you either put out a piece of marketing, or before you accept a job, etc. And so, if your goal is to help, let's say those that are without food, those that are going hungry, that's very singular. Is it? Who am I trying to help? Am I trying to help people in America? Am I trying to help people in North Carolina? Am I trying to help people in Moore County?
Right.
You see how much you can really narrow that down, and then if you have that narrow, so like we have an agency here in town that helps people that have been through spousal abuse and violence and things of that nature. Like they know who they're trying to help, and they help those people.
Right.
It's very specific. It's not like they're trying to help people in other parts of the world. Not that those people don't need help, but that's not their mission. But is it very specific?
Right.
Is it the person they're trying to help? And that way you're very focused, and you can focus all your endeavors on that.
Right. So, like a niche. I mean, niches are always scary because that, doesn't that narrow down your clientele? So if I'm starting out and I want to make money, and then I only go for a small amount.
My opinion?
Yes, your opinion.
You should niche down as much as possible.
You should not, or
You should.
You should.
You should niche down as much.
Really?
And here's like the thing I tell people all the time. And that's if your customer is everyone, if your customer is everyone, your customer is no one.
If your customer is everyone, your customer is no one.
You can't sell to everyone.
No.
Don't waste your time trying to sell to everyone. Find out who your customer is and focus on that person. And again, the more specific you can be, the better.
Right.
And so, we run into this all the time, like when you're networking, and I'll ask the question, who's a good customer for you?
Yeah.
And they'll say, anyone. And I'll say, they'll say everyone. And I'm like, well, I don't know everyone.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
can't
That makes
recommend
sense.
anybody to you.
Yeah.
But if you say, "Oh, I'm looking for a new business owner that has a problem processing their payments, or their accounting's too high, or whatever," it's like, "Oh, well, I know somebody that can have some software that might be able to help you with that," or whatever the case may be. But if you say it's everyone, I don't know everyone. I don't know who that is.
Wow, you really made that easy to understand, John.
Years of talking to people that were smarter than me.
Yeah. Okay, what resources, books, podcasts, habits would you recommend for anyone trying to grow personally and professionally?
All right, I love books. I love finding a good book. Atomic Habits
Okay.
is one, and I don't remember the author. Apologize. Atomic Habits. Trying to think of some other ones here that I had. Ooh, Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week.
Oh, yeah, I've
Have
heard
you read
about that before. Yes.
So little snippet on that. But long before COVID, he was saying, go to your job and figure out how you can do your job. Instead of 40 weeks, try to figure out how you can do it in 20 weeks.
Okay.
Or 20 hours. Instead of 40 hours, try to figure out how you can do your job in 20 hours. And then work from home. He's like, there's no reason you need to be in the office doing all this other stuff. Work from home. And then that time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then during that time, you can either start another job, or you can start vacationing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He was preaching this, like a decade before. I don't know how long before COVID. It was a long time before COVID. And of course, that became like the standard during that time. And we're still, benefiting, or however you want to look at it from that. But most people now realize, I don't have to be in the office all the time.
Exactly.
So that's Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week.
Good, thank you. So I've heard about that book. I've not read it. I'm glad you brought that back up, because I am looking for something to read right now. So I know I was in a mastermind with John for a little while out of our networking group. And I know that people just gravitate to him to ask questions. How do I do this? How do I do that? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And so I want to know, what's a nice piece of wisdom you always find yourself sharing?
I think I'm gonna repeat something we've already said, but I think it's
That's
so
okay.
important, especially when you're first starting your business. You're looking for low-cost ways to build your business, grow your customer base, and I think networking is not talked about enough, especially in the days of social media. Networking is not talked about enough. It's very low cost, except for your time, which when you first start in a business, if you don't have any customers, guess what? You have time to go network.
You have time.
And like I said, I've been in business since 2017, and I am still benefiting from people I met in 2017. I'm still getting business from network connections I made way back then.
Oh, yeah.
So that is my one piece of advice, is you should be out there talking to people.
So is there any particular way? I mean, it's kind of daunting when you're going out there by yourself and you're jumping into a networking group or some kind of thing that you're going to. How do I go up to people I don't know? How do I know that they even want to talk to me? Talk to me about doing it.
Yeah, it's actually, I don't want to say it's easy, because some people have more fear than others. So I don't want to downplay that. But really, just don't worry about yourself.
Yeah.
Just ask them a ton of questions. People love to talk about themselves. Just ask them a ton of questions.
Yeah.
What do you do? Oh, really? Tell me about that. Oh, really? Tell me about that.
Yeah.
Oh, tell me about that. I mean, you can just keep going. Just like, really? Well, how does that work? Really? Well, why does your business do that? I mean, you can just keep going and going and going and going, and like, you'll learn a ton, right?
Right.
And they feel like, oh wow, this person is interested. And if you do it with real intent, you are interested.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, one or two things will happen. One, you'll be able to help them out with your business, and then when the opportunity arises, you can present it. And if it doesn't, like I said before, you can find somebody else that they can help out, because now you know a ton about their business.
Yeah.
Right? And so when you go over here and talk to the next person, you're like, oh, wow, this person I just spoke to, y'all two should get together.
Yeah.
And then you be that connector for them.
Yeah. So really, by helping someone else, even if it's not helping you directly, it does help you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If you're in it for the long game, it will 100%.
And you can't get in business if you're not into it for the long game.
Like, why?
Yeah.
No.
So where is StoryFocused Media going from here?
Where is StoryFocused Media going from here? Mm-hmm. I'll answer that maybe by explaining where we've been.
Okay, that sounds good.
So I was that person when I first started my business. I wanted to. My customer was kind of everybody, right? And then finally, I was like, well, my customer is like, if I can walk into a store, I used to say this: if I can walk into an establishment and meet the owner,
Yes.
Like that was my business because I was a small business.
Okay.
You know, and I really like that. Well, now, you know, we've moved on to maybe a little larger, you know, and so now we want customers that have a budget for marketing, right? We want somebody that I can sit down with, ask all these questions that we talked about, find out what their goals are, and then give them a solution. But then on top of that, I want them to be able to afford the solution.
Right.
So
exactly.
that's kind of knowing, that's like, so everyone's not my customer because they may not be able to afford that solution.
Right.
And that's fine. I mean, we're not for everybody and they're not for us, all that kind of good stuff. So in the future, or kind of where we're going, if you will, is basically more of that.
Okay.
More of just trying to say, okay, what are these, like these monthly content that we do for people? Like it's more like long-term, like what do you want, not just now. I know you need this video now for your website, or I know you need this video now for this product launch. But let's look at a year from now. Where do you want, talking about the other company, where do you want to be, and how can these videos help your company get there and help your client grow?
Right. So what about these monthly storytelling that you do? Tell us about that.
So I call them, and I'm sure other people do, call them basically micro content.
Okay.
To where, like, you know, you've seen people get on TikTok and they're in front of the camera and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What I do is I understand their business, understand their goals, and then let's say I'll write them 10 videos. Say these are the things we're going to talk about that would help answer your customers' questions. And then I'll give them a hook for each video. They supply the body really because that's they know about it. I don't, but I'll tell them what it should focus on. Like this should focus on customer service. This should focus on your warranty. This should focus on what your sales process is, whatever. And then we have a call to action at the end. And then I come in, I set up my camera, set up my lights, and we shoot all 10 videos in an hour, however long it takes. And then their monthly content is done for the month.
Oh yeah.
Like they're done. They're done. I go home, edit it, go to office, you know, all that kind of good stuff. Give it to them when they're done for the month, and then we do it again the next month. And they can look and say, "Hey, this video looked really good. Let's do something similar to that." Or, "Yeah, this one didn't get any at all." Well, why didn't it get any at all? Well, we did this. All right, let's tweak it. And so next month we'll do something a little different.
Now, do you have a favorite social media, or are we putting everything on everything, or?
It kind of depends on the client as a person. I will
Right.
say that, like who's in front of the camera kind of depends sometimes, and on the business. TikTok's huge. I think most people know that, or if they don't, they should have figured it out a couple years ago. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, you know, kind of all. I will say it's funny. Not all businesses have gotten on TikTok yet. I attend a roundtable every month that I'm working at. I'm not speaking. I'm actually recording it, and it's people from all over the state and people at very high levels all over the state. And they were talking about how much trouble they're having recruiting employees.
Really?
And so when it was all done, I was kind of talking to them on this side, and I was like, "Well, have you thought about getting on TikTok?" And they laughed.
No
They literally laughed. They did not understand it. 6 months later, same room, almost the same people.
Yeah.
Yeah, we finally decided we need to get on TikTok.
Yeah.
And it's because that's where the people that they were trying to hire in 2 or 3 years, like they're not there now, but the people they want to hire in 2 or 3 years are there now.
Right.
And they know that they need to be in front of those people, so when it's time for them to enter the workforce, they're aware of that brand, they're aware of that company.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
TikTok, huh?
Yeah.
So I am procrastinating doing that myself. It's a little scary, but I do know I've seen businesses, you know, be launched because of TikTok.
Yeah. And if you don't like TikTok, that's fine. You can get by. I mean, but I do think between Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, it depends on what your business is. I mean, you do need to have a presence.
So do you think once a month is enough post? No.
No.
What's your advice on that?
I would say 3 times a week is a minimum.
And all of them.
No. Let me say this. I think it's almost like dieting or any of this other stuff. If you tell people everything that they should be doing, they're going to be overwhelmed and they're not going to do any of it.
Exactly.
And so I think that misses the point. I think if you pick one,
okay,
you know, and with TikTok and Instagram especially, you can kind of post to both at the same time. But you can just pick one and start on that. Start with 3 days a week and just go from there.
And what gets more hits, when they video themselves, or when they're talking through a video, or just words? Or
TikTok especially is obviously very much like you're on the video.
Right.
Instagram, their reels are really big and the carousel is really big right now.
Right.
So I mean, being on, it's hard to avoid being on the camera, if you will.
Yeah.
But you can do it. I mean, there are brands that do it. There are brands. There's one that I follow, and he's a guy that travels around the country. I can't never see his face. He's like out in the distance. He's just showing these cool cool nature and mountains and rivers. And he's in the picture. I can't see his face. I can't tell you what it looks like.
No kidding.
You know what I'm saying? Because that's not the point of his channel.
Right.
The point of his channel is, hey, look where I'm at.
Right.
Look how beautiful
look at this gorgeous
is.
View, yeah.
So you don't have to. So
Okay.
I don't. I think there's a point to be made that, hey, be different. Don't be on screen. Never be on screen, for that matter. That's an angle you could take, and I think if you did it right, you can be very successful.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. All right, John, before we wrap things up, we like to throw a few rapid-fire questions your way. This is the part where we really get to know the man behind the media. Just say the first thing that pops into your head. No overthinking allowed. I might ask you to expand a little bit. We'll see. All right. If your life were a cartoon, what would the theme song be called?
I don't know what it'd be called, but it's either going to be the DuckTales theme song or the Gummy Bears theme song. So that's what it's going to be.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll have to go listen to that. All right. You're stuck in an elevator with one fictional character. Who is it and why?
I'm going to say Hobbs, which is the tiger from Calvin and Hobbes.
Okay. Why?
Why? Calvin, I think Calvin would pull a prank on me, so I don't want Calvin. I don't know if you know the comic or not. So I don't know that I would trust being in the
Elevator stuck with Calvin.
But I think Hobbs is both funny and he can have a conversation. So I think he would be very entertaining.
All right. What's your go-to snack during a long editing session?
Dark chocolate.
Oh, yeah. It's a fruit, dark chocolate.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
It's healthy. What's a movie you've watched more times than you can care to admit?
I don't mind admitting it. I think Back to the Future is probably
really Back to the Future. One?
Yeah, the first one.
Okay. Do you like the others too?
Oh, yeah. I like them all.
Okay. All right. What's one creative tool you can't live without?
Pencil and paper.
Pencil and paper. I did not expect that to come out of your mouth.
Yeah, if I'm idle or if I'm going to be sitting somewhere for a while, I want pencil and paper in my hand.
Just so you know, he has his notebook right beside him.
But I haven't started drawing yet.
No. Okay, let's see. Here's one about emojis.
Oh, yeah.
So if you had to pitch your business using only emojis, which ones would you choose?
Yeah. I mean, I know there's like a movie camera emoji. So
that makes sense.
I guess I could do that one.
Okay. All right. First job you ever had?
Paperboy.
Paperboy. All right. How old were you?
8.
8? Nuh-uh.
Yeah.
Bicycle? Your mom drive you around?
No,
yeah.
we walked. It was myself, my brother, my brother, my sister, and we had a paper route every day after school. We have to go get the papers. You have to fold them. You do that, and then on Saturdays and Sundays it was early in the morning, so we had to do it early in the morning.
That's commitment. Paper routes are tough.
Yeah.
They really are.
It was a blast. I mean, at the time, it was the worst thing ever. And
you were 8.
We were like, going to report our parents for child abuse and stuff like that. Because the bag was so big, I could like lean to one side, but it would hold me up. Like the weight on the other side was so much. But it was a good experience.
How long did you do that?
I think we just did it a year. And it's just kind of so far back in the memory, but I think we did it about a year.
But the thing is, it's every day.
Yeah, every day.
Every day.
Yeah, there's no break. There's no break.
No. I said no to paper route. I did babysit. All right, morning person or night owl?
I used to be a night owl, majorly. But as I've gotten older, I'm starting to move more towards a morning person.
Do you get up early in the morning?
No, I wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't mind. I don't mind getting up, and I like it when I get up early. I like being out early.
Yeah, me too. But I just still don't do it. Yeah.
but I'm very happy when I do. Like when I'm
me
out,
too.
and I'm happy when I'm up.
All right. So, what's your hidden talent that not many people know about? Don't say drawing because we know that one. You're overthinking it.
Yeah, I don't. Okay, I play video games. How about
that? Is that a talent?
I don't know if
Is
it's
that
a talent.
your talent?
I'm very talented at playing video games.
Do you play the shoot 'em ups?
I play a little bit of everything, but I don't play much current. Like my son has a different games that he plays, and I have different games that I play. But I'm an old school gamer, like from the arcade, Atari, Nintendo. Like that was where I was introduced to games.
No kidding. My husband still has his old Atari.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Do you as well?
I have a newer one that plays the old games.
Okay. All right. Last thing that made you laugh out loud.
Last thing that made me laugh out Probably my son. Yeah, I don't even remember what he said, but he said it. He said it yesterday over the weekend, and it was just absolutely hilarious. And I thought he used to say things that were funny on accident,
Right.
but whatever he said then, he did it on purpose.
He did it on purpose,
and it cracked myself and my wife up.
Oh yeah. Is he a fun? I mean, is he funny?
Yeah. He's
What's his personality like?
He's probably shyer than I am, but he's one of those. If you get to know him, if he'll talk around you, he's really funny and really like he can say a lot of stuff. Yeah. He's really good. And I like the fact that he can hang on what I say. He can hang on adult level. Like if you're having an adult conversation, he can listen, talk, and he can be funny on that level.
Really?
But then when he gets around his friends, he's super annoying.
Yeah.
To hear them talk is just so annoying. I'm sorry, that sounds like an old person.
You sound a little like an old person.
It's true. It's true.
So he's an only child, though, right?
He is.
Okay, so myself being an only child, I was also able to talk to adults because that's who I was around all the time, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Does he like being an only child? Because I was a horrible only child.
I'll say the same thing I said when I was a kid. He doesn't know any different.
He doesn't know any different. So. All right. Okay, that was awesome. You're a storyteller and a character. I love it. So as promised, here is your jingle.
Story focused, nice and flair, crafting tales beyond compare. Heart and hustle in every frame, you shape the story you claim to fame.
There you go.
That's awesome.
John, this has been rich. Thank you. And before we go, I want you to jump out there with one last thing that we need to know. That we're entrepreneurs, we're ready to get this business going. What's one piece of information you can give us? One nugget.
I would say speaking specifically to entrepreneurs, your business does not have to be complete to start it. Start it now in some way, shape, or form.
Okay.
You don't have to have all your customers. You don't have to have all the money, but you can go out and talk to one person, offer a service, at least see if they're interested, and just start right there.
Okay, that's great advice. Just get started. Just do it, right?
That's it.
Okay. All right, so now let's figure out, I was going to say, how do we get in touch with you if we want to work with StoryFocused Media? First of all, who should we be first before we get in touch with you? And how do we get in touch with you?
Oh, I would invite anybody to get. I don't want to like say don't get in touch with me. Even if you're not a right fit, we can talk about that.
Okay.
And I can hopefully point you in the right direction.
And you're going to tell us.
So yeah, that's not a problem.
Okay, great.
So anybody can get in touch with me, whether they have a question or whether they have a need or whatever. That's no problem. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok at StoryFocused Media.
Okay.
So written out StoryFocused Media. You just type that in any one of those and you'll find it. Yeah.
So TikTok, Instagram, and that's how we get in touch.
And or Facebook, yeah.
Or Facebook, and you've got messengers on there. We just message you. Okay. So you heard it. Is there a website that we can look at where we can see some of your things?
StoryFocusedMedia.com.
Right. Okay. All right. You heard it from John himself. Just go to StoryFocused Media, and you can look it up on his TikTok, on Facebook, on Instagram. I bet on LinkedIn as well.
I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah.
And his website, and you can see some of the things that he does.
That's it.
All right. Thank you. And to our listeners, if John said something today that sparked an idea, gave you clarity, or made you laugh, do us a favor. Like, share, and subscribe to the Imagine More podcast. We are here to inspire, empower, and walk alongside you as you build the business and life you imagine. Until next time, stay bold, stay curious, and always imagine more.